After 32 races, 6 playoff races, and a lot of different things happening to get us here, we are now finally at the round of 8, the final deciding round to get us to the final 4. So today we're going to look at 8 drivers who have made it this far, see how far ahead they are, see what they've done at these tracks, and see maybe the seed history as well, and see who might make the final 4. Let's get on into it. Starting with the 1 seed, we have William Byron, who's up by 20 points right now over the cut line. Looking at the history for the number 1 seed, every 1 seed has made it to the final 4, with the exception of Kevin Harvick in 2020. And in odd years, 17, 19, and 21, the number 1 seed wins it all, getting the championship in half of the playoff seasons. And, well, good news, William Byron fans, it's an odd year. Now looking at the tracks, Las Vegas is a track where William Byron can be hit or miss. He can win and lead 176 laps like in the spring, but also finish, between 13th and 18th, give or take. He also has a 9.0 average in his last 5 races, and when you look at the last 5 races at each track, one glaring statistic pops out. Byron has dominated and won at least one of the last 5 races for Vegas, Homestead, and Martinsville. And he also, for the most part, is pretty damn good at Martinsville as well. Stage points thus far in the playoffs overall, he has a win, 3 top 5s, 4 top 10s, and averages of 5.5 this season in the playoffs. But he only has 31 stage points, which puts him 6th of 8. His buffer at the moment should be enough based on history, but it's never a surefire bet. Second is Martin Truex Jr., who's up by 15 now over the cut line. And, well, I'm just going to say it like this. He's been god-awful in the playoffs thus far and is by far the worst performing driver of the remaining 8. With a 21.3 average finish, not even close to sniffing a top 10 finish. And yes, while he has 10 stage points earned, it is still last, and all 10 of them were at the Roval, which is not too applicable to 2 mile-and-a-halfs and a short track. His history is something he can go back on, though, as all 3 of these tracks have been very good to Truex. And barring the 1 or 2 finishes here or there outside the top 10, he is always a threat to win at Homestead and Martinsville. And he's not too shabby at all at Las Vegas. If they can get their act together and turn it around, he may be like every other 2 seed in the history of the playoffs since 2017 and make it into the final 4. And maybe be like Joey Logano and win it like last year. Now in third, you have Denny Hamlin plus 11, and Hamlin is another one who seems like a huge contender. He has shown speed just by the eye test alone, and looking at his last 5 races at each of these tracks, his outliers cover up just how fast he's been. Hamlin has led 618 laps in his last 5 starts at the Martinsville Speedway and has not won. In my opinion, he may be due for a win. He has an 8.2 average finish at Homestead in his last 5, including a win. Also, he won at Las Vegas in his previous 5 starts, when keeping the outlier of a 32nd place finish out has not finished lower than 11th, and that was more or less not as much his fault. The playoffs so far have been good to him as well, 58 stage points, putting him 3rd of the 8 drivers, and he has a win in 4 top 5s so far. And history also goes to Hamlin's direction when it comes to the 3rd seed, who has had, while no champion, which might fit Hamlin, nobody ever missed the final 4 as well. The 4th seed and final one in at the moment plus 3 is Kyle Larson. And Larson is somebody who is just hard to figure out. He has been mind-numbingly inconsistent so far this year, and while he has really low lows, the highs are incredibly high. Now, his last 5 races at each of these tracks all have one big outlier, but he also has won at each of them as well. Vegas is one where he's led almost 300 laps. He's led almost 400 laps, including almost 200 alone last year in a victory at Homestead, and he just won the previous Martinsville race, which is probably his weakest track out of all of these. So far, he has scored the most stage points of any of the remaining drivers in the playoffs at 66, and he has a 11th place average finish so far with 3 top 5s and a win. In the history of the 4 seed, it's been difficult, as only 2 of 6 have made it since this format was in place in 2017, though Chase Elliott did win his championship from this seed as well in 2020. Now, in the 5th seed and the first one out by 3 is Chris Buescher. And Buescher, to me, is one that I just don't know what to make of just yet when it comes to this round. He has not performed well at any of these tracks before. He is very much like the non-chaotic version of Ross Chastain from last year. He definitely has become the fastest improving driver this season by both metrics and eye test, and he also has been somebody who just cannot be eliminated, though the stats do not go in his favor still. He has 23 stage points, second to last only to Martin Truex Jr., and the playoffs so far, he has 2 top 5s and 3 top 10s, but like I said, of the last 5 races at Vegas, Homestead, and Martinsville, those 15 combined races, he has a grand total of 1 top 10 and only 57 laps led, all of those being in 1 Homestead race. The number 5 seed is about a 50-50 shot of making it into the Final 4, though they have not made it since Joey Logano did in 2020. In 6th is Tyler Reddick, 8 out at the moment. And for Reddick, it's been a pretty big and amazing journey getting here. The big point that he needs to really lean into is stage points. 61 so far have been scored by his team in the playoffs, which puts him 2nd at the moment. Also, he has a win at 1.5 miles in Kansas, which will really help towards Las Vegas and Homestead, building up a notebook, especially Vegas, which is similar. He's been good in the past at Homestead as well. While he had 35th last year, he had preceded that by 2 top 5s. And I don't think he's going to let off the gas a lap early this time. When it comes to Vegas, he's been a bit hit or miss, but while getting a 15th place finish in the previous race, his 3 before that were all top 10s. Martinsville will be the difficult one. He has not scored a top 10 in 4 races, and he has not led a lap there in his last 5 with an average finish of 20th. The number 6 seed is one of the outliers to make it. Only one has made it before, and that was Chase Elliott in 2021. If Reddick is to make it, he's going to need to get more consistent. The number 7 seed is Christopher Bell. Bell is currently 8 points out of the Final 4 at the moment, and he is another one who's going to need to up his performance just a little bit more to make it to the Final 4, similar to what he did last year when he won at Martinsville, leading 150 laps. Bell has speed everywhere, and it seems like he should be a lock to make the Final 4, but his statistics as well as playoff history statistics don't speak the same story. He does have 2 top 5s and 3 top 10s so far in the playoffs. He's scored 55 stage points, which puts him in the top 4 and really differentiates him from the other 4 in the playoffs. But when you look back at his past, it's hit or miss. He has a top 10 or a finish outside the top 20 in every other race at Las Vegas. He, at Homestead, can run fast, but has only got a career high of 8th. And at Martinsville, that win was one of only 2 races in the last 5 that he's been in the top 10 alone, and the only top 5 he's had in that span. The number 7 seed has only made it once, and that was 2018 Joey Logano. Though Logano did win the championship that year, he also was tied for 5th at the time. Now, last but not least is Ryan Blaney, who's 10 points out at the moment in the final seed. I'm going to level with you right now. The final seed going into the round of 8 has never made it into the Final 4, and statistically, he is the biggest long shot you could have. He's going to have a perfect round and probably have things go right, and hope that not too many drivers in the playoffs at the moment win in any of the next 3 races. When you look at his previous races at Las Vegas, it's hit or miss, but a lot of the miss has just been a crash or something out of his control. He has the speed. At Homestead, his average is about 15th, and he really doesn't have as much of the speed except for his race there in 2020. As for Martinsville, he's been more and more consistent there. Now, he has not led any more than 5 laps in his last 4 races, but he has had top 10 and top 5 speed, and if they're able to keep it going for a full race, he could be in contention to make that next round. Now, talking about all these drivers and what they've done, what they'll be doing, what the tracks are, all of that, what are my predictions? Well, for me, it's this. You got William Byron. I think he's the most obvious choice at the moment. Then you got Denny Hamlin, who I think's been as fast as anyone out there, and these tracks line up pretty good for him. And then I think you get Kyle Larson. Larson, yes, has been inconsistent, but he has the highest ceiling, and all of these tracks still line up well for him as well. And then one outsider that I think is going to make it, I have my faith right now in Chris Buescher. I think he's the best of the four outside, and every year there has always been somebody in those bottom four who gets up there. So this year I think it's Buescher. But with that, I'm going to ask you, what is your Final Four prediction? Let me know down in the comments below. And while you're at it, leave a like on this video, share this video, and subscribe to this channel for more great NASCAR content. Thank you so much to all my channel members for your continued support. And be sure to watch the NASCAR Weekly Podcast tonight on Eric Estep's channel. So, until then, have a good one.